phones.
Welcome back to New York City Comic-Con, SYFY WIRE live stage. Man, I don't even have to ask how you guys are doing because everybody here sounds pumped. And I understand why, because we have here on stage some very important people. I'm super psyched about this. The cast and creator of Hellboy. Part of the cast, we should say. There are some members who aren't here, but Sasha Lane, Dae Kim, man who needs no introduction, David Harbour, and of course, Mike Mignola, the creator of Hellboy. Thank you guys so much for joining us here. So you must have just run over from the panel, right? It just happened. What was that like? How was the experience? You guys showed some footage? People psyched?
Yeah, was anybody here at the panel? No, look, you guys were all here, like, waiting for that. Yeah, it was great. It's really fun, right?
God, I didn't get to see anything before that, and then so to see this, I'm like, oh, this is cool. We made a movie.
It's the first time you're seeing things like effects and all. That's awesome.
Yeah, we saw a couple minutes of footage we showed kind of exclusively for the crowd here, and you know, it's really fun. Like, it's a really fun, exciting movie to like be a part of and to be here with. So, and I love New York City. I live here. And I also love the nerds, because I am one as well.
So, Mike, let's talk about the process of coming into this reboot, if we can call it that, of the movie franchise. What was it about the vision of it this time around that appealed to you, as opposed to, or I guess, you know, not as opposed to, but you're working with a new creator, a new team. What was that like?
Well, it's always exciting, because even though, I mean, I created the comic, every time we do one of these things, you kind of get to recreate that world. And even though this one is based on one particular storyline, it's actually, well, it's complicated in the comic, but you know, various people wanted to pick up this element from a different comic and that element from another comic. You know, it must be easier when you're adapting a novel, because there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. But you have 25 years of comics to choose from, and everybody's like, but we want to use this character, we want to use that character, and it's, thank God they wanted me involved to help stitch it together in a way that still felt true to the comic, even though we've monkeyed with the story a bit.
Yeah. What was the vibe that we've heard is that this is more horror, whereas the Del Toro versions are a little more fantasy influenced. This is a bit more horror influenced. How does that manifest on screen?
I mean, in my mind, it really is at its core a monster movie. So, like, you know, and it sort of takes a cue from the old-time monster movies as well. Like, so much of the effects are practical. That entire suit that you see in the poster is practical. There's no CGI in that. Those horns are real, that body is real, that thing is real, and it moves, and it has all this independent movement, and it's expressive, and so there will be whole scenes with like two whole monsters just like having a scene together, and like that's so rare. And there is this dark kind of horror-y monster element to it. I think that's really at its core, beyond, in a different way a little bit than a superhero movie. I mean, it has those superhero elements, but to me, Mike's work and this character is much more, you know, he's the beast of the apocalypse. I mean, he is like this monstrous figure in a certain sense. So we play that up much more.
But it's also funny, though, and that's something that, that we don't talk about a lot. But David did a great job with kind of improving lines and having alternate takes. And I don't know how many of you saw the footage earlier today, but there's a lot of comedy in there. And so it's a nice mix of the horror and the comedy.
How is it like for you guys working with the practical effects as opposed to this, you know, CGI effects are very common now in movies, and is that something you prefer, to have the actual monsters there in the room with you?
I definitely prefer it, because I want to create this world in my head, and sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do if you have nothing to go off of. But to be surrounded by all of this, you really got to interact with the eeriness of it, or all of the characters, and really, it feels like you are a part of Hellboy's world already while you're doing it. You know, you don't have to wait to see anything or try to put it in your head. You get to really get the feel of it while you're performing.
And I have to say, I learned today that Sasha is like literally in love. She doesn't care so much for me, but she's literally in love with Hellboy. When I put the contacts in, and apparently I have the red chest hair red and black chest hair, that like really does
That's
it
not
for her.
naturally yours.
It's not my chest hair, no.
It would break
no.
me. Like, I would be so in love, and then he'd like walk out the trailer like all regular, and I was like, cool.
Whatever.
I mean, I think we can all understand that Hellboy is a pretty attractive man. But so this is more of a straight adaptation, as we've talked about. I mean, obviously you said you've monkeyed with the story a bit, but relative to the past films, this is an adaptation of the story. How true does it stay to the trilogy of the comics that it's pulling from?
Well, I mean, it's funny. I mean, you know, to give Del Toro credit, his first movie was pretty much an adaptation of the first Hellboy book. This kind of picks up in the middle of the Hellboy storyline, which at first I thought was kind of a funny place to start, but you didn't want to just retread the same material. And it was a really good storyline to establish a different tone, and also had a really clear place where you could go back in and restate who Hellboy is. I don't remember the question now, but it's very, very nice.
Excellent. For the cast, this is a huge mythology, very deep, goes into a lot of, you know, classic folklore and things like that. How much of a rabbit hole did you go down once you became involved in this process? Not only with the Hellboy mythology, but anything beyond that. Was that something, I mean as a reader of Hellboy, I love
and the thing about Hellboy that to me is so special and unique is this mythology thing. Like so many superheroes things have their own mythology, but Mike's comics have King Arthur in them. They have Baba Yaga. They have these epic figures that are sort of drawn from actual mythologies, kind of spliced together in this really interesting, unique way. But
because they're copyright free. And you don't have to make up the names.
Oh, it's so good. So cheap. So we've learned that Mike Mignola is cheap, which is good, because thriftiness is what I look for in a comic creator. But yeah, I mean, you know, the monsters, again, as I say, like the monsters in this movie are so fun. Like we're all monsters. I mean, Sasha's a witch, and you know, Daniel has got some problems, and I'm a monster.
In real life.
So like your lead characters are monsters, and that to me is like so fun and epic and big. It's like Shakespearean, it's like Greek tragedy. I mean, it's got all these places you can go with it in terms of humor and in terms of pathos. Like they can have these big epic feelings that are really fun to play as well.
Very briefly, I want to talk about a cast member who's not here, who's Milla Jovovich, playing the Blood Queen. What was it like working with her as that character? What can we expect out of her? I mean, you guys
like,
square off with her in the film.
She's like she's like a terrifying. She really understands the genre, and the great thing about Milla is she really wants the finished product to be amazing. She was really excited to do this movie, and someone like her who's done a ton of these genre movies, I expected her to kind of come in and be like, oh yeah, it's another movie that I'm doing. She was so excited to play this character in this movie with this cast and this director, and it shows in the film. Like she was like a child on set, like so excited to make this movie and interested in the whole thing. And so that sort of love is kind of what went into the whole process. Like everybody who came in who I thought would be kind of jaded and a jerk, like Dae Kim here or something like that,
yeah,
was like wound up being just such heart and such passion and such joy to do what we were doing. And I think that really comes across in the movie.
Is that something you guys experienced as well?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't necessarily get to work with her a lot, but even her energy, if I knew she was in the studio or something, I was like, oh, she about to do something, you know? Because I mean, of course, I kind of want to see what's going on in every part because I care. But with her, it's like, because our schedules were off, but it was good to know that when she was in there doing her part, you knew she was in there doing her part, you know? And that's how we felt being all together. So to have people step in who aren't on set all the time, it's just like, nah, we're all really in this.
Nice.
And I would just say, yeah, what David was saying is that this is a magical world that exists in our real world. And so for it to succeed, it requires a lot of commitment on the part of the actors. And anyone who's kind of half in, you know, doesn't do their own characters a service, but it doesn't do the movie a service. And everyone here was fully committed to their roles. And that makes all the difference in a movie like this.
Awesome. And just as this final thing to wrap up, David, you just reopened the floodgates on the Twitter challenge front. How's that going? What can we look forward to seeing?
Yeah, I haven't
What
posted it
stunts
yet
or-
because I got inspired and again got myself into trouble at the panel. But yeah, apparently there is a lovely woman and her boyfriend who are huge Hellboy fans, and they want me to officiate their wedding in March as Hellboy. And I've decided to give them an impossible number of retweets to make that happen. But if they do, I'm really excited to try to get the Catholic Church to ordain me as a minister to do that, because I think it's time to bring all people into the religion like Jesus wanted us to.
With the big red demon with horns. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's still a guy. He's trying to do the right thing.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. The cast and creator of Hellboy, Sasha Lane, Dae Kim, David Harbour, Mike Mignola. Hashtag NYCC, hashtag It's a Fan Thing. Stick around. Next up, Aisha Tyler on this stage.
Hi, I'm Jackie Jennings with SYFY WIRE. If you can't get enough of New York Comic Con, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel for news, interviews, cosplay, and so much more. What are you waiting for?